"Sit in the back so you don't get in the way," the director said, his voice cutting through the air like a cold blade, but the employee silenced the entire room. The phrase, more than mere words, was a whip cracking in the oppressive silence of the glass-walled meeting room, a sound that reverberated not only in the environment but in Anna Clara's soul, echoing in every fiber of her being, freezing the blood in her veins. She felt each syllable pierce her skin, pass through her bones, and lodge itself like a cold, painful splinter in her chest, a cruel and poignant reminder of her subordinate position, her supposed insignificance, her status as an intruder. The panoramic view of New York City, with its bluish mountains stretching across the horizon like distant promises and the mirrored skyscrapers reflecting the morning sun in a dazzling glow, which once promised a horizon of infinite possibilities and a bright future, now seemed to mock her smallness, her insignificance on that stage of power and rampant ambition. Dr. Richard Anderson, the director, a man who personified arrogance in his impeccable Italian-cut suit and a forced smile that barely disguised the deep contempt he felt for those he considered inferior, pointed with a dismissive and almost disdainful gesture to the last chair. It wasn't just the last, it was the most hidden, almost swallowed by the shadow of a robust concrete pillar, a place reserved for those who shouldn't be seen, much less heard, a corner for the forgotten, for those who had no voice. Anna Clara, at her recently turned 28, was the newest member of the software development team at the prestigious Innovatech, a company she had dreamed of joining since college, a dream nurtured by years of study and sacrifice. This, ironically, was her first general meeting, the moment she had imagined as her grand debut, her opportunity to shine. She had prepared with an almost feverish dedication for days and nights on end, delving into every line of code, dissecting every report, dreaming of contributing fresh ideas, of showing the value of her brilliant and innovative mind, of leaving her mark. Her backpack, heavy with meticulous notes and a newly purchased laptop bought with her hard-earned savings, now seemed a burden of crushed hopes, an unbearable weight on her shoulders, a premonition of disillusionment. But there she was, being relegated to the role of a mere extra, a shadow, even before the orchestra of the meeting began to play its notes of power and strategy. Her eyes, which until a few minutes ago shone with the sparkling expectation of a new beginning, of a promising future full of challenges, now carried a dense shadow of humiliation, a mist of unshed tears that blurred her vision, making the world around her indistinct. She swallowed hard, feeling the lump in her throat tighten, a bitter knot that prevented any word, any protest, any cry of revolt from passing. Each step she took towards that isolated chair was an act of silent courage, a defiance of gravity that seemed to pull her to the ground, to oblivion, to the annulment of her very existence. Her head held high, yes, but her heart, oh, her heart was in pieces, shattered on the polished marble floor of that merciless room, an echo of her wounded dignity, of her torn soul. The meeting proceeded, an endless parade of grandiose presentations about new projects, colorful graphs promising stratospheric profits, and ambitious goals that seemed unattainable, a spectacle of self-proclamation. Anna Clara, despite being physically present, felt like a ghost, an invisible entity observing the world through a veil of pain and resentment, a spectator of her own misfortune. Her ideas, which simmered in her mind like a cauldron of innovation and creative solutions, now seemed insignificant, mere inaudible whispers before the grandeur of the plans presented by more experienced colleagues, men and women who spoke with the unwavering confidence of those who had already secured their place in the sun, of those who didn't need to prove anything to anyone, of those who held power. She tried, with all her might, to concentrate, to absorb the information, but the director's voice, which had previously humiliated her so cruelly, now seemed a distant hum, an irritating noise that mingled with the accelerated and painful beat of her own heart, a symphony of anguish and despair. With each slide that passed, with each graph projected on the screen, with each ambitious goal announced with pomp and circumstance, Anna Clara felt smaller, more insignificant, like a grain of sand on an infinite beach, about to be swept away by the tide of indifference and oblivion. She wondered, with a growing anguish that squeezed her chest, if she had made a monumental mistake in accepting that job, if her ambitions were too grand, disproportionate to her capacity, to her inexperience in that hostile and competitive environment, if she truly belonged there, if there was a place for her in that world. Doubt, like a voracious parasite, corroded her soul, undermining her self-confidence, and the initial humiliation, far from diminishing with time, transformed into an open, throbbing wound that threatened to bleed with each new day, each new interaction, each new look of contempt. This was just the beginning of her journey at Innovatech, and Ana Clara already felt the overwhelming weight of a world that seemed determined to crush her, to silence her forever, to erase her existence. The feeling of being an intruder, a misplaced piece, was almost unbearable, but a small flame of rebellion began to burn within her, a silent promise that she would not surrender so easily, that she would fight until the end. The following days at Innovatech were a gray blur of repetitive tasks and disdainful glances, each one a small stab at her already wounded self-esteem, a constant and cruel reminder of her inferior position, her supposed inadequacy, her status as a mere pawn in a corporate chess game. Ana Clara was constantly ignored in team discussions. Her suggestions, no matter how brilliant and well-founded, were dismissed with a wave of the hand, without even being considered, as if they were mere unimportant noises, ideas from a naive and inexperienced child. She spent hours at her desk, a cramped and isolated cubicle in a forgotten corner of the office, almost like a punishment, programming endless lines of code, an intricate web of commands that stretched for pages and pages, while her colleagues, in a cruel and painful contrast, laughed and chatted animatedly in the break room, their voices and laughter echoing like a distant and unattainable melody, an invitation to a party from which she was excluded, a stranger in her own land, a silent observer of a life that did not belong to her. With each solitary lunch, consumed in silence as she watched the interaction between others, the camaraderie she so desired but which was denied to her with an almost palpable cruelty, Ana Clara felt the emptiness in her stomach and in her soul, an emptiness that no food could fill, a hunger for recognition that slowly consumed her. She saw groups forming, inside jokes she didn't understand, weekend plans that never included her, and felt like a stranger in her own land, an invisible observer of a life that did not belong to her, a misplaced piece of the puzzle, an unwanted element. One afternoon, while trying to present an innovative solution to a persistent bug that had plagued the team for weeks, a problem no one else could solve and that was delaying a crucial project, she was abruptly interrupted by a colleague, a middle-aged man with an ironic smile and a condescending look that made her feel small and insignificant. "Ana Clara, dear," he said, his unctuous voice dripping with falsity and a paternalistic tone that deeply irritated her, "leave the complex problems to those who understand the subject, okay? You're new here, you still have a lot to learn. Don't worry about it, we'll handle it. We don't want you to get overwhelmed with something beyond your current capacity." The phrase, said in a joking tone but with a veiled cruelty that did not go unnoticed, hit her like a punch to the stomach, knocking the air out of her, leaving her breathless, her body trembling with indignation. She felt her face flush, a blush of shame and anger rising up her neck, tears threatening to well up, burning in her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of them, to give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble, of seeing her weak and vulnerable. She merely nodded, feigning an indifference she was far from feeling, and returned to her desk, her heart heavy, throbbing with a dull, persistent pain, a wound that opened even wider. The worst of it was the feeling that, even with the solution on the tip of her tongue, she was silenced, her voice muffled by arrogance and prejudice. That micro-conflict, seemingly small, left a deep mark because she knew her work was valuable, but it was summarily dismissed without even being evaluated, without a chance to prove her point. That environment, which should have been a cauldron of collaboration and innovation, seemed more like a gladiatorial arena, where the weakest were mercilessly devoured, where competition was savage and empathy, a forgotten word, a non-existent concept, a utopia. She felt trapped in a vicious cycle of humiliation and devaluation, and with each passing day, the flame of her passion for programming, which once burned so intensely, seemed to diminish a little more, threatening to extinguish completely, leaving her in the deepest darkness. The pressure was immense, an overwhelming weight on her shoulders, and she wondered, with growing anguish, how long she could endure, how long her soul could bear to be trampled upon in that way, day after day, without a glimmer of hope, without a sign that things could improve. Nights were filled with insomnia, with incessant thoughts about work, about the cruel words, about the feeling of inadequacy that consumed her, corroding her self-confidence and self-esteem. She tossed and turned in bed, her pillow wet with silent tears, dreaming of an escape, of a place where her talent would be recognized, where her voice would be heard, where she could be herself, without fear of being judged or diminished. But, at dawn, the brutal reality of Innovatech awaited her, and Ana Clara got up, put on her invisible armor, and prepared for another day of battle, with the hope, however faint, that one day, somehow, things would change, that her luck would turn, that justice would prevail. She clung to that hope like a shipwreck survivor clings to a piece of wood in a stormy ocean, knowing it was the only thing keeping her afloat, the only reason to keep fighting, not to drown in bitterness and despair. She felt she was on a tightrope, balancing between giving up and stubbornness, and with each step, the abyss seemed deeper, more threatening, more inviting. Amidst this oppressive atmosphere, dense like a heavy fog that suffocated any remnant of joy and creativity, a faint but persistent ray of light emerged in the figure of Lucas. He was one of Innovatech's most talented programmers, a true prodigy of logic and creativity, known for his sharp intelligence that unraveled the most complex codes and for his reserved, almost enigmatic demeanor, which made him even more interesting and mysterious in Ana Clara's eyes. Lucas had curious, deep brown eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances, catching nuances that most ignored, and a discreet smile that he rarely showed, but which, when it did appear, illuminated his face in a singular way, revealing an unexpected kindness and a human warmth that Ana Clara found in no one else there. He observed Ana Clara from afar, with an attention she didn't even notice, perceiving the blatant injustice with which she was treated, the way her brilliance was constantly overshadowed by the mediocrity of others and by Richard's calculating cruelty. He saw the pain in her eyes, the frustration in her restrained gestures, and felt a pang of empathy, an almost irresistible urge to intervene, to protect her. One day, seeing her struggle with a complex code, a tangle of algorithms that seemed to defy logic and patience, a problem that left her visibly exhausted and on the verge of despair, he approached her desk. His steps were soft, almost inaudible on the office carpet, as if he didn't want to startle her or interrupt her concentration. "Need help with that?" he asked, his voice soft, almost a whisper, contrasting sharply with the constant noise and bustle of the office, an oasis of calm amidst the chaos. Ana Clara, immersed in her frustration and surprised by the unexpected approach, looked up, her eyes brimming with tiredness and irritation, but also with a glimmer of hope she barely dared to acknowledge. "No, thank you, I'm fine," she replied, trying to hide her frustration, her voice choked with contained emotion, with the shame of being seen in a moment of weakness, of vulnerability. Lucas, however, was not fooled by her facade of indifference. With a gentle gesture, he pointed to a line of code on Ana Clara's computer screen. "Here, you can optimize this using a different algorithm. It will reduce processing time by 30%. It's a technique I learned in a previous project, and I see you're on the right track, it just needs a small adjustment." His words were not critical, but of genuine collaboration, of recognition for her effort. Ana Clara felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. No one at Innovatech had offered her help so selflessly and respectfully. That small gesture, that simple suggestion, opened a crack in her heart hardened by hostility. She accepted the help, and together, in comfortable silence, they worked on the code, Lucas's mind complementing hers almost magically. In a few minutes, the problem was solved, and Ana Clara felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you so much, Lucas," she said, her eyes meeting his, a sparkle of admiration and recognition. "I've been struggling with this for hours." Lucas just smiled, that discreet smile that lit up his face, and said, "We're here to help each other, aren't we? We're a team." That phrase, "we're a team," echoed in Ana Clara's mind, a stark contrast to the individualistic and competitive mentality that Richard imposed. From that day on, Lucas became her confidant, her mentor, her friend. They began to talk more, to exchange ideas about projects, to share their frustrations and hopes. Lucas saw in Ana Clara not just a colleague, but a kindred spirit, a woman of rare intelligence and sensitivity, a silent warrior who deserved all the recognition in the world. He invited her to lunch, and during the conversation, which extended longer than usual, Ana Clara discovered that Lucas had also faced difficulties and prejudices at the beginning of his own career, a journey that had made him more empathetic and understanding, capable of understanding her pain and struggles, of identifying with her journey. He encouraged her not to give up, to believe in her undeniable potential, not to let the bitterness of others define her or make her doubt herself, to fight for her place, for her voice, for her truth. With each passing day, with each deepening conversation, with each exchange of glances that became more meaningful, the connection between them strengthened, weaving an invisible but powerful bond that united them in complicity and affection. The office, which once seemed a place of torment, a daily battlefield, now had a small refuge, a space where Ana Clara could be herself, without fear of being judged, without the need to wear masks, a place where she could breathe and be who she truly was, where her soul found peace. The romance between them, still incipient, delicate like a rosebud about to bloom, slowly blossomed amidst pain and adversity, like a rare and resilient flower that finds its way through the arid desert, defying all odds and blooming against all expectations. It was a love born of empathy, mutual respect, silent admiration, and it promised to be the strength Ana Clara needed to face the challenges yet to come, a promise of a better future, of a safe harbor amidst the storm. That love, born in the desert of her soul, was the force that propelled them, the hope that kept them standing in such a hostile environment. It was proof that, even in the most difficult circumstances, the heart finds its way, its reason for being, its light. With each secret meeting, each stolen moment, the flame of their love burned stronger, illuminating the darkness that surrounded them, dispelling the shadows of doubt and fear. They knew the future was uncertain, that the challenges would be many, but they were ready to face them together, hand in hand, with the certainty that their love was unbreakable, a fortress against the world. Despite Lucas's unwavering support, who had become her safe harbor in the storm, the only anchor in her turbulent sea, the only voice of reason amidst the chorus of disdain, the micro-conflicts at work persisted, like venomous insect bites that, though small, caused constant and deep irritation, draining her energy, her peace of mind, and her already fragile self-confidence. Director Richard, in particular, seemed to have developed an inexplicable and almost personal aversion to Ana Clara, as if her mere presence deeply irritated him, like a thorn in his throat, a stain on his impeccable suit, a constant reminder of his own mediocrity. He ostentatiously ignored her in meetings, as if she were invisible, a ghost in the room, an inanimate object, assigned her the most tedious and uninteresting tasks, those no one else wanted to do, the most thankless and repetitive jobs that required time but not intelligence, and, on one particularly cruel occasion, even insinuated, with a cynical smile and a scornful look that made her feel small and humiliated, that she had only been hired due to quotas, a phrase loaded with prejudice and Devaluation, questioning her ability and merit, her very professional existence, her dignity as a woman and a professional. The phrase, said in a joking tone but with a load of prejudice and sexism that hit her hard, left her furious, her blood boiling in her veins, a rage she could barely contain, threatening to explode at any moment, turning her into an erupting volcano. Lucas, who witnessed the scene, felt anger rise through his own body and tried to intervene, a protective impulse that compelled him to defend her, to confront Richard, to put an end to that humiliation. But Anna Clara stopped him with a look, a subtle gesture, but loaded with meaning. She knew that a direct confrontation at that moment would only make things worse, would give Richard the satisfaction of seeing her react, of seeing her crumble. She preferred silent revenge, victory achieved with intelligence and hard work, irrefutable proof of her worth. That incident, however, was a turning point. Anna Clara realized that passivity would get her nowhere, that she needed to fight for her space, for her voice, for her dignity. She began to record every humiliation, every derogatory comment, every unfair task, every time her ideas were stolen or ignored. It was a secret diary of injustices, a weapon she kept for the right moment, for the day when the truth would come out. She also began to observe Richard more closely, to study his weaknesses, his flaws, his vulnerabilities, transforming herself into a silent strategist, an attentive observer, a patient hunter. With each passing day, each micro-conflict, each new humiliation, Anna Clara's determination strengthened, like steel forged in fire, making her more resistant, more unbreakable, more resilient, an indomitable warrior. She would no longer be the passive victim, the silent figure in the back of the room, the shadow no one noticed, the puppet in Richard's hands. She would be the protagonist of her own story, the architect of her own destiny, the warrior who would fight for her place, for her dignity, for her truth, for her voice. She began to study even more, to hone her skills, to seek knowledge in areas that Innovatech didn't even explore, becoming an expert in her field, a reference in her area, a brilliant mind no one could ignore. She transformed anger into fuel, pain into motivation, humiliation into a springboard for success, a propelling force that pushed her forward, to the top, to victory. Her eyes, once filled with tears, now shone with a new light, the light of resilience and silent revenge, the promise of a future where she would be the winner, the queen of her own empire, the mistress of her own destiny. She knew that the best revenge would be her own success, her own ascent, and she was determined to achieve it, no matter the cost, with all her strength, with every fiber of her being, with every beat of her heart. She spent sleepless nights, devouring books and technical articles, practicing new codes, developing parallel projects in secret, away from the curious and envious eyes of Richard and his cronies. With each line of code written, each problem solved, she felt a growing power, a certainty that she was on the right path, that her time would come, that her voice would be heard, that her light would shine. She would not just be a programmer, but an innovator, a leader, an inspiration for all women silenced in sexist and toxic workplaces, to be a voice for those who had no voice, for those who had been silenced, for those who had been forgotten. The romance with Lucas, though still discreet and shrouded in a veil of secrecy that forced them to live in the shadows, to whisper their feelings and hide their glances, was Anna Clara's only solace, her only refuge amidst the aridity of her professional daily life. He was the gentle breeze that calmed the storm in her soul, the ray of sunshine that penetrated the dark clouds, bringing warmth and hope, a balm for her invisible wounds and for the exhaustion that consumed her. They met for lunch in hidden cafes, in charming alleys of New York City, in discreet bakeries where they could talk unnoticed, to have coffee at alternative times, to discuss work, life, their deepest dreams and fears, sharing their souls in whispers and complicit glances that spoke more than 1,000 words. Lucas was an attentive listener, a wise counselor who offered words of comfort and encouragement, a safe harbor where Ana Clara could anchor her tired soul, vent her frustrations without fear of judgment, without the need for masks, without the worry of being misunderstood. He encouraged her to develop her boldest ideas, not to remain silent in the face of injustice, to fight for her space with the conviction of someone who knows her worth, who has something important to say to the world, who deserves to be heard. Ana Clara, you have incredible talent, he would say, his brown eyes fixed on hers, conveying unwavering confidence, unconditional faith in her abilities, in her limitless potential, in her star. Don't let the mediocrity of others stop you from shining. The world needs your light, your intelligence, your unique vision. Don't hide, don't fade away. Lucas's words were a balm for Ana Clara's soul, an elixir that healed the open wounds left by the cruelty of the work environment, making her feel renewed and strong, capable of facing any challenge, any obstacle, any enemy. She felt understood, valued, loved in a way she had never experienced before, a love that filled her completely, that made her feel whole again, rescuing her essence. The love between them grew each day, with each obstacle overcome, with each exchanged glance, with each subtle touch, becoming the driving force that propelled her forward, to fight for a future where they could live this love openly, without fear, without secrets, without the shadows of the hostile office. It was proof that, even in the most difficult circumstances, the heart finds its way, its reason for being, its light. With each secret meeting, each stolen moment, the flame of their love burned stronger, illuminating the darkness that surrounded them, dispelling the shadows of doubt and fear. They knew the future was uncertain, that the challenges would be many, but they were ready to face them together, hand in hand, with the certainty that their love was unbreakable, a fortress against the world, a shield against evil. The pressure at work, however, did not diminish, but intensified each day, like a rope slowly tightening around Ana Clara's neck, threatening to suffocate her. Richard, sensing that his power was being questioned by Ana Clara's growing competence and the loyalty she inspired in some colleagues, intensified his harassment tactics, becoming even more cruel and calculating, a true predator. He began to delegate impossible tasks to her, projects with ambiguous requirements and unrealistic deadlines, carefully set traps to make her fail and thus justify her dismissal. Furthermore, he subtly but effectively sabotaged her projects, altering specifications at the last minute, withholding crucial information, or simply ignoring her emails and requests, creating a chaotic and frustrating work environment that pushed her to the brink of collapse. To make matters worse, he began to spread malicious rumors about her personal life, insinuating that she was irresponsible, that her relationship with Lucas was unethical, and that she used her charm to gain favors, trying to undermine her reputation and credibility with the team and the board, tarnishing her name. In a meeting with important clients, a crucial event for Innovatech, Richard presented a project that Ana Clara had masterfully led, dedicating nights and weekends of hard work to it. However, he attributed all the credit to a male colleague, a certain Mark, praising him effusively and completely ignoring Ana Clara's presence and contribution, who was sitting at the table, her heart heavy with indignation and her soul ablaze. The injustice was blatant, and Ana Clara felt her blood boil in her veins, but she restrained herself, remembering Lucas's words. She knew that the moment of truth would come, and that her revenge would be her own success, her own ascent, her own voice. Lucas, who was present at the meeting, exchanged a complicit glance with Ana Clara, conveying strength and silent support, a promise that he would be by her side, no matter the cost. He knew how much she had worked on that project, how much she had dedicated herself, and felt the same indignation, the same anger, the same urge to shout the truth. After the meeting, he sought her out, offering his shoulder and words of comfort. "Don't worry, Ana Clara," he said, his voice soft but firm. "The truth always comes out. And when it does, everyone will see your worth, your talent, your strength. Don't give up, my love. Lucas's words were a balm for Anna Clara's soul, a reminder that she was not alone, that she had someone by her side, someone who believed in her unconditionally, someone who saw her light even in the deepest darkness. But Richard's cruelty didn't stop there, it intensified, taking on even more perverse and calculating contours, as if he were determined to break Anna Clara's spirit once and for all. He began to isolate Anna Clara even further, removing her from important and strategic projects, those that could give visibility to her talent, deliberately excluding her from crucial emails and meetings where decisions were made and vital information was shared. In an even greater act of pettiness, he moved her desk to an even more remote and forgotten corner of the office, near the cleaning supplies closet, as if she were old, useless furniture, an obstacle to be hidden. The smell of chemicals and the constant movement of cleaning carts were a daily reminder of her devaluation, her marginalization. He forced her to work unusual hours, demanding detailed reports on trivial and unimportant tasks, only to then publicly criticize them, ridiculing her effort and dedication, exposing her to the scorn of her colleagues. Anna Clara, this looks like intern work. Can't you do something decent? He would bellow, with a sneer, in front of other employees, making her feel small and incompetent. Each day, Anna Clara felt more exhausted, more demotivated, as if she were fighting against an relentless tide pulling her down, into the darkness of despair. The stress began to affect her health alarmingly, causing chronic insomnia, constant headaches that throbbed in her temples, and a sense of anxiety that accompanied her at all times, turning her life into torment. She wondered if it was worth continuing, if her passion for programming would be enough to overcome such adversity, if she would have the strength to resist this psychological warfare. The voice of Patricia, her closest friend, echoed in her mind, urging her to give up, to find a place where she would be valued, where her talent would be recognized, where she could be happy. Anna Clara, you don't deserve this. Get out of there before they completely destroy you. Patricia pleaded in her nightly calls, worried about her friend. But Anna Clara's stubbornness, fueled by anger and the determination to prove her worth, prevented her from giving in. She clung to Lucas's image, to the love that united them, as the only light amidst the darkness that surrounded her, the only reason to keep fighting. She knew she needed to find a way to turn the tables, to expose the truth, to fight for her dignity and her future, for her own sanity. With each new injustice, the flame of her rebellion burned stronger, transforming pain into a powerful fuel for her ascent, for her revenge. She would not be broken, she would rise from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. In an act of desperation and to try to further undermine Anna Clara's morale, Richard began to assign the most interesting and challenging projects, those that Anna Clara had shown interest and ability to lead, to Mark, the same colleague he had praised in the client meeting. Mark, an ambitious and unscrupulous man, accepted the projects with a victorious smile, knowing he was benefiting from the injustice committed against Anna Clara. He even began to boast about his projects in front of her, describing the details and challenges as if they were his own accomplishments, with a tone of voice that bordered on provocation. "Oh, Anna Clara, you don't know what you're missing. This new project is fascinating, full of challenges that only the best can solve," he would say, with a look of superiority, while Anna Clara felt a pang of pain and anger in her chest. The humiliation was constant, and Anna Clara was forced to watch from the sidelines as Mark's ascent, fueled by the theft of her own ideas and Richard's sabotage. She felt like a prisoner in her own mind, watching the world crumble around her, unable to do anything. Each day, with each new provocation from Mark, with each disdainful look from Richard, the flame of her passion for programming seemed to diminish a little more, threatening to extinguish completely, leaving her in the deepest darkness. But, deep in her soul, a small voice whispered, "Don't give up. Your time will come. They will regret it." And that voice, however faint, was the only thing that kept her standing, the only reason to keep fighting, not to drown in bitterness and despair. Despite all her resilience and the flame of rebellion burning in her chest, Ana Clara felt the weight of loneliness and professional isolation intensify each day, like a silent disease corroding her soul. Richard, with his cunning and cruelty, had managed to create an invisible and almost insurmountable barrier between her and the rest of the team. Colleagues, once merely indifferent, now actively avoided her, as if she carried a plague, fearing the director's retaliation, who was known for his relentless vengeance. Whispers and furtive glances followed her through the corridors, and she realized that the malicious rumors spread by Richard were taking effect, corroding her image and credibility, turning her into an outcast. During a lunch in the break room, Ana Clara tried to join a group of programmers discussing a new framework, a topic she mastered and had brilliant ideas about. As she approached, the conversation abruptly ceased, and glances shifted, some with pity, others with clear discomfort, as if she had invaded sacred space. One of the colleagues, a young man named Tom, who had previously seemed more receptive and even exchanged a few words with her, mumbled a flimsy excuse about having an urgent appointment and left, taking the group with him, leaving Ana Clara there, tray in hand, feeling the emptiness of the room and the weight of exclusion, of rejection. That moment was a hard blow, showing that Richard's harassment was not only direct but also indirect, undermining her relationships and her sense of belonging, isolating her completely. The humiliation extended beyond the office walls, invading her personal and professional life in ways she never imagined. At a tech industry networking event in Los Angeles, to which Ana Clara had been invited by Richard, but with the clear intention of isolating and diminishing her, she found herself alone amidst hundreds of professionals, like a fish out of water. Richard, who was also present, made a point of introducing her to some important contacts, but always with a condescending tone, minimizing her achievements and emphasizing her inexperience, her lack of savvy. "This is Ana Clara, our new junior programmer," he would say, with a false smile that didn't reach his eyes. "She's still learning the ropes, but she has potential, who knows, maybe one day she'll get there." The words were like poison, disqualifying her before she could even open her mouth to talk about her work, her ideas, her ambitions. She tried to engage in conversations, but felt the suspicious glances, the reluctance to take her ideas seriously, the invisible barrier Richard had built around her. The feeling of being an imposter, of not belonging in that world, consumed her, corroding her self-confidence and self-esteem. Lucas, who couldn't attend the event, called her that night, noticing her subdued voice, her soul in tatters. "How was it?" he asked, his voice full of concern, feeling her pain through the phone. Ana Clara broke down, telling him about the isolation, Richard's insinuations, the feeling of being invisible, of being a nobody. Lucas listened patiently, offering words of comfort and reaffirming her worth. "Don't worry about what he says, Ana Clara. The people who truly matter see your brilliance. And I do. I always have. You are a star, my love, and no one can extinguish your light." Lucas's words were a balm, but the wound of humiliation persisted, reminding her of the battle she still had ahead, the war she needed to win. Despite everything, Ana Clara did not let herself be completely defeated. She knew that the best way to combat Richard's malice was with excellence, with impeccable work that spoke for itself. In secret, she began to work on an ambitious personal project, a process optimization software that could revolutionize the way Innovatech managed its resources, a project she had long envisioned but which Richard had shelved. She spent sleepless nights, programming, testing, refining every line of code, transforming her anger and frustration into fuel for her creativity, into a driving force that propelled her forward. Lucas, aware of her secret project, offered technical and moral support, helping her overcome the most complex challenges, unraveling the mysteries of the code, finding innovative solutions. He was her accomplice, her mentor, her greatest encourager, her rock in the storm. With each advance in the project, Ana Clara felt a pang of hope, a certainty that her time to shine was coming, that her voice would be heard, that her light would be seen. She visualized the moment she would present her work, not just to Richard, but to the entire board, to investors, to the world. It would be her silent answer, her elegant revenge, irrefutable proof of her talent and resilience, of her ability to overcome any adversity. That project became her purpose, her reason for continuing to fight in such a hostile environment, her secret weapon against injustice. She knew the path would be arduous, that Richard would do everything to stop her, to sabotage her, to destroy her, but she was determined to move forward, to prove her worth, to silence the entire room with the strength of her ideas, with the genius of her work. The flame of rebellion, once small, now burned intensely, illuminating her path and strengthening her soul, preparing her for the final battle. Despite all the care and discretion, the secret of Ana Clara and Lucas's relationship would not last forever. Innovatech, with its corridors full of curious eyes and attentive ears, was fertile ground for gossip, intrigue, and the spread of venom. Richard, with his network of loyal informants and his unhealthy obsession with controlling the lives of his subordinates, already suspected the closeness between the two. He had noticed the exchanged glances, the contained smiles, the whispered conversations that abruptly ceased when he approached, the way Lucas always seemed to be nearby when Ana Clara needed help, a complicity that deeply irritated him. The last straw, the trigger for the explosion, came on a rainy, cold afternoon, when Lucas, concerned about Ana Clara's exhaustion after another night of hard work on this secret project, walked her to the bus stop, offering his umbrella and a quick farewell hug, a gesture of affection that proved fatal. One of Richard's informants, an envious and unscrupulous colleague named Brian, who always sought a way to please the director and climb the company hierarchy at the expense of others, saw them and promptly reported the incident, adding exaggerated and malicious details to inflame the situation, turning a simple hug into a scandal. The next day, Ana Clara and Lucas were summoned to Richard's office, an environment that seemed to have transformed into an inquisition court. The director was livid, his face red with fury and his eyes flashing like burning embers. He threw a series of photos taken by Brian onto the table, showing the two together, in moments of complicity, at angles that distorted reality and suggested a greater intimacy than what actually existed. "What does this mean, Ana Clara?" "Lucas?" Richard thundered, his voice cutting through the air like thunder, reverberating off the walls of the room. "You are blatantly violating company policies. Relationships between employees are prohibited, especially between members of different teams. This is an affront to my authority, an unacceptable lack of professionalism, an indecency that will not be tolerated in this company." He accused them of unprofessionalism, of disrespecting the rules, of putting their personal interests above the company's interests, of sabotaging the work environment with their indecency and immoral behavior. Ana Clara, however, far from shrinking or apologizing, refused to regret her love, her choice, her dignity. With her head held high and her eyes fixed on Richard's, she defended her love, her freedom, her dignity, her truth. "We did nothing wrong, Richard," she said, her voice firm, echoing through the room, surprising everyone, including Lucas, who looked at her with admiration. "We love each other, and that's not a crime. Our relationship doesn't interfere with our work, and we have the right to love whoever we want. Our personal lives are none of your business, and your policies are abusive, inhumane, and archaic." Lucas, by her side, supported her in everything. His silent but powerful presence was a protective shield, an unshakable fortress. He refused to leave her alone, to abandon her to Richard's fury, to betray their love. He knew that this was the moment to fight for their love, for their dignity, for their truth, for a future together, no matter the cost. The situation became a scandal in the company, and the news spread quickly through the corridors, through emails, through message groups, like an uncontrollable fire, consuming everything in its path. Some colleagues, who had already witnessed Richard's injustices and tyranny, supported them in secret, sending messages of encouragement and solidarity, admiring Ana Clara's courage and Lucas's loyalty. Others, fearing the director's retaliation, openly criticized them, or simply remained silent, observing the scene with a mixture of curiosity and fear, without taking sides, concerned about their own positions and the future of their careers. But most were in shock, not knowing how to react to such an explosive and unexpected situation that shook the company's foundations. Ana Clara and Lucas became the center of attention, the target of all eyes, all comments, all judgments. The pressure was immense, overwhelming, but instead of letting themselves be defeated, they united even more, like two trees intertwining to resist the most violent storm, their roots deepening, becoming inseparable. They knew they would have to face the consequences of their choices, that the path ahead would be arduous and full of obstacles, but they were willing to pay the price, to fight for their love, for their happiness, no matter the cost. Their love was stronger than any prohibition, any threat, any scandal. They were ready to fight for their love, for their future, for their happiness, no matter the cost. That moment of crisis, of exposure, of vulnerability, paradoxically, strengthened them, further cementing their union, making them inseparable, a force to be reckoned with. They looked at each other, and in their eyes, they saw the promise of a future together, a future worth fighting for, a future they would build with their own hands, defying all adversities, all injustices, all prohibitions. Despite the turbulence that had settled over Innovatech, with the scandal of Ana Clara and Lucas's relationship and Richard's imminent dismissal, which was already an open secret whispered in every corner of the corridors, Ana Clara and Lucas continued to work on the new software project with a determination bordering on obsession, an unshakable force that propelled them forward, as if their lives depended on it. They knew that the product's success would be the best answer to Richard, irrefutable proof of their worth, their competence, their passion for innovation, and the most elegant way to silence critics, to unmask the farce, to prove their intellectual and moral superiority. It was their silent revenge, their way of silencing critics and showing the world what they were capable of proving their merit and intellectual superiority, of rewriting the narrative Richard had tried to impose. In one of the last meetings before the official launch, an event of great importance for the company, which would be attended by key investors and top management, Richard, still in office but with his reputation already damaged and his power diminished, a man on the brink of an abyss, presented the final project. Once again, he shamelessly appropriated Ana Clara's ideas, as if they were his own, with the same arrogance as always. He praised the team's work, with a forced smile that barely disguised his nervousness and insecurity, but completely ignored her contribution, as if she had never existed, as if she were an insignificant shadow, a mere detail. Ana Clara, however, did not remain silent. She felt adrenaline course through her veins, her heart pounding in her chest, a war drum announcing the final battle, but the inner voice that propelled her was stronger than any fear, stronger than any hesitation, stronger than any threat. She raised her hand, asking to speak, a simple gesture, but loaded with meaning, with courage, with defiance, with a rebellion that had matured. "Excuse me, Richard," she said, her voice calm but firm, echoing through the room, drawing the attention of everyone present, who turned to her, surprised by her audacity. "I would like to make some observations about the project, and to present some functionalities that were not mentioned, which are crucial for the product's success and which were developed by me, with Lucas's invaluable collaboration." Richard, surprised by Ana Clara's boldness, tried to stop her, mumbling flimsy excuses, trying to divert the focus, but she continued, unshakable, with the determination of a river flowing to the sea, without letting obstacles deter her. She stood up, walked to the center of the room, and with a clarity and eloquence that silenced the entire room, presented her ideas, her solutions, her innovations, with a mastery that impressed everyone. She showed, with graphs and live demonstrations, that she was the true mind behind that project, the true driving force of Innovatech, the soul of the software, the creator of its essence. She revealed technical details that only she knew, functionalities that only she had developed, and which Richard had conveniently omitted, trying to steal her credit and glory, her very professional identity. The audience, composed of important investors, company directors, and colleagues, was in shock. They had never seen Ana Clara express herself that way, with such confidence, such determination, such passion, such mastery, such authority, such truth. Richard, for his part, was livid, his face pale and sweaty, his eyes wide with panic, his facade unmasked before everyone, his mask falling to the ground. He tried to interrupt her, tried to disqualify her, tried to diminish her, but Ana Clara did not let herself be defeated. She continued to speak, to expose the truth, to fight for her recognition, for her rightful place, for her dignity, for her honor, for her voice. With each word, each slide, each demonstration, Richard's farce crumbled, revealing the naked truth, the manipulation and theft of ideas, the cruelty of his actions, the rottenness of his character. That moment was a watershed in Ana Clara's life, the culmination of her journey of overcoming, the turning point that would change everything, not only for her, but for Innovatech. She had overcome her deepest fears, her most ingrained insecurities, her most painful humiliations. She had become the woman she had always dreamed of being, a strong, determined, courageous woman who would not be silenced in the face of injustice, who fought for her ideals, who defended her truth, who inspired everyone around her. Innovatech, which was once a place of torment, injustice, and oppression, was now a place of triumph, redemption, and justice, a new beginning, a new era. Ana Clara had conquered her space, her recognition, her respect, not by favor, but by merit, by her own ability and resilience, by her inner strength, by her light. And Lucas's love, which was once a secret, was now a celebration, a testament that truth and love always prevail, always find their way, always triumph over darkness, over evil, over injustice. Ana Clara's presentation had been an earthquake, shaking Innovatech's foundations and exposing the deep cracks in Richard's leadership. The stunned silence that followed her speech was broken not by immediate applause, but by a growing murmur, a buzz of shock and disbelief that spread like a virus through the room. The investors, previously impassive, now exchanged nervous glances, their features hardened by the seriousness of the situation. The company directors, with pale and tense faces, seemed to have aged 10 years in a few minutes, realizing the gravity of the scandal unfolding before their eyes. Richard, for his part, was in a state of shock, his face red with shame and fury, his eyes wide with panic, like a cornered animal. He tried to stammer something, a flimsy excuse, a desperate attempt to defend himself, but the words were lost in his throat, choked by his own lie. It was then that one of the most influential investors, a man with graying hair and a penetrating gaze, known for his integrity and for not tolerating dishonesty, slowly rose. His voice, deep and firm, cut through the air like a sentence. "Dr. Anderson," he said, addressing Richard with thinly veiled contempt, "I believe we have much to discuss regarding the ethics and integrity of your management. And, Ms. Ana Clara, your presentation was not only brilliant but revealing. I commend your courage." From that moment on, the room transformed into an impromptu courtroom. The company directors, pressured by the investors, demanded detailed explanations from Richard. The accusations of misconduct, plagiarism, and moral harassment, previously whispered, were now uttered aloud, with irrefutable evidence presented by Ana Clara, who had meticulously documented every injustice in her secret diary. Emails, task logs, silent testimonies from colleagues who now felt encouraged to speak, everything came to light, unmasking Richard's deception relentlessly. Richard's dismissal was summary, effective immediately, and without right of appeal, an outcome he never imagined. The news spread through Innovatech like wildfire, and a huge weight was lifted from Ana Clara's and the entire team's shoulders, who breathed a sigh of relief, feeling freedom for the first time in a long time. But the story didn't stop there. Innovatech, shaken by the scandal, needed new leadership, a new direction, someone who could restore the team's confidence and morale. And the choice was unanimous. Ana Clara, the woman who had been told to sit in the back so you don't get in the way, was promoted to Director of Projects, a position she had dreamed of holding since the beginning of her career, but which seemed unattainable during her days of humiliation and devaluation. She had earned her place, her recognition, her respect, not by chance, but by her own strength, talent, and unbreakable resilience. Lucas, who supported her every step of the journey, was promoted to her right-hand man, and together, they transformed Innovatech into a place of innovation, collaboration, and respect, an environment where talent was valued and everyone's voice was heard, where creativity flourished without fear. Their love, which was once a forbidden and dangerous secret, was now an inspiration to everyone in the company, an example that true love can overcome any obstacle and flourish even in the most adverse conditions. They married in an intimate and emotional ceremony, surrounded by friends and family, and built a life together, full of love, happiness, and success, a future they had fought to achieve with their own hands. Ana Clara, who was once the humiliated employee, the silenced voice, was now the respected leader, the accomplished woman, the protagonist of her own story, the architect of her own destiny. She had proven to everyone that, with courage, determination, and love, it is possible to overcome any obstacle and achieve the most ambitious dreams, transforming adversity into triumph. Richard's dismissal was not just a relief for Ana Clara and Lucas, it was a catalyst for a profound transformation throughout Innovatech. The company, once suffocated by a culture of fear, harassment, and favoritism, began to breathe new, purer, and more inspiring air. The news of Ana Clara's ascent to Director of Projects, and Lucas as her right-hand man, was met with a mixture of surprise and hope. Many colleagues, who had previously remained silent for fear of retaliation, now felt encouraged to speak out, to share their own experiences of harassment and injustice. Ana Clara and Lucas, aware of the responsibility they held, initiated a series of structural and cultural changes. They implemented an anonymous reporting channel, ensuring that no voice would be silenced again, and created mentorship programs for young talents, especially women, who were often marginalized in a predominantly male environment. Ana Clara's first major initiative as director was the creation of an Ethics and Innovation Committee, a forum where all employees' ideas were heard and evaluated fairly, without prejudice or hierarchies. She made sure that Mark, the colleague Richard had used to steal her credits, was one of the first to be invited to participate. In a frank and emotional conversation, Ana Clara confronted Mark, not with anger, but with serene firmness. "Mark," she said, "I know what happened. I know you were used by Richard, but I also know you made choices. This is your chance to do the right thing, to contribute your talent ethically and transparently." Mark, visibly ashamed and touched by Ana Clara's attitude, confessed his role in Richard's deception and offered sincere apologies. He committed to being an ally in building a new culture in the company, a gesture that marked the beginning of true redemption for him and for the team. Innovatech, under the visionary and empathetic leadership of Ana Clara and Lucas, flourished in an unimaginable way, exceeding all expectations and becoming a benchmark in the market. The company became a model of innovation and inclusion, where talent was valued above all else and respect was the foundation of all relationships, creating a healthy, productive, and inspiring work environment. Ana Clara, now a successful businesswoman and an influential public figure in the technology sector, was an inspiration to many women who dreamed of conquering their space in the job market, especially in male-dominated fields. She dedicated herself to mentoring young talents, encouraging diversity, and promoting a fair and egalitarian work environment where everyone had the chance to shine and develop their maximum potential. Lucas, her life and work partner, was her greatest supporter, her confidant, her unconditional love, the rock she could lean on at all times. They built a beautiful family with 2 children, who grew up in a home full of love, respect, and solid values, learning from their parents' example the importance of integrity and perseverance. Ana Clara's life was a living testament that perseverance and self-belief can transform humiliation into triumph, pain into strength, dreams into reality, showing that anything is possible for those who do not give up. She never forgot that day when Richard told her to sit in the back so you don't get in the way, but instead of being silenced, she silenced the entire room with her voice, her intelligence, her unwavering courage, her striking presence, and her truth. The story of Ana Clara and Lucas became a legend at Innovatech, a constant reminder that true strength lies in integrity, resilience, and the ability to rise after every fall, to learn from mistakes, and to move forward with even greater determination. They continued to innovate, create, and inspire, always with the passion and dedication that united them from the beginning, keeping the flame of innovation and love alive. The company, which was once a stage for injustices and prejudices, transformed into a beacon of hope and opportunities for many, a place where dreams could come true and where human potential was celebrated. Ana Clara, with her wisdom, empathy, and vision for the future, became an admired leader, not only for her professional achievements but for her humanity and her ability to transform lives, to inspire positive changes. She and Lucas, hand in hand, faced every challenge, celebrated every victory, and built a legacy of love, success, and positive impact on the world, leaving their indelible mark on the history of technology and on the lives of many people. Their life was living proof that true love can flourish even in the most hostile environments, and that the voice of truth, however muffled, always finds a way to echo and transform, to change the course of history for the better. The story of Ana Clara and Lucas did not end with Innovatech's transformation. It became a legacy, a living narrative that inspired every new employee and every company partner. Innovatech, once a stage for injustices and prejudices, transformed into a beacon of hope and opportunities for many, a place where dreams could come true and where human potential was celebrated, regardless of gender, origin, or position. Ana Clara, with her wisdom, empathy, and vision for the future, became an admired leader, not only for her professional achievements, which were many and notable, but for her humanity and her ability to transform lives, to inspire positive and lasting changes. She and Lucas, hand in hand, faced every challenge, celebrated every victory, and built a legacy of love, success, and positive impact on the world, leaving their indelible mark on the history of technology and on the lives of many people. Years passed, and Innovatech, under the visionary and empathetic leadership of Ana Clara and Lucas, flourished in an unimaginable way, exceeding all expectations and becoming a global benchmark in the technology market. They expanded the company to other countries, always maintaining the values of respect, innovation, and inclusion as fundamental pillars. Ana Clara, now a successful businesswoman and an influential public figure in the technology sector, was an inspiration to many women who dreamed of conquering their space in the job market, especially in male-dominated fields. She dedicated herself to mentoring young talents, encouraging diversity, and promoting a fair and egalitarian work environment where everyone had the chance to shine and develop their maximum potential. Lucas, her life and work partner, was her greatest supporter, her confidant, her unconditional love, the rock she could lean on at all times. They built a beautiful family with 2 children, who grew up in a home full of love, respect, and solid values, learning from their parents' example the importance of integrity, perseverance, and the courage to fight for what is right. Ana Clara's life was a living testament that perseverance and self-belief can transform humiliation into triumph, pain into strength, dreams into reality, showing that anything is possible for those who do not give up. She never forgot that day when Richard told her to sit in the back so you don't get in the way, but instead of being silenced, she silenced the entire room with her voice, her intelligence, her unwavering courage, her striking presence, and her truth. Innovatech became a success story studied in universities and business schools, not only for its impressive financial results but for the organizational culture that Ana Clara and Lucas had cultivated. They proved that it is possible to build an empire without stepping on anyone, that empathy and ethics can be as powerful as ambition and competitiveness. In an interview for a renowned business magazine, Ana Clara was asked about the secret to her success. With a serene smile and a sparkle in her eyes, she replied, "The secret is never doubting your worth, even when the world tries to diminish you. It's finding your voice and using it for good, to inspire, to transform. And, above all, it's having someone by your side who believes in you unconditionally, someone who reminds you of your strength when you forget." Lucas, sitting beside her, held her hand, a silent gesture that spoke volumes about the love and partnership that united them. The story of Ana Clara and Lucas became a modern fairy tale, not with princesses and princes, but with programmers and leaders who defied adversity, who fought for their ideals, and who built a better future, not only for themselves but for everyone around them. They proved that true innovation is not just in technology, but in how people relate, respect each other, and support each other. And so, the phrase "sit in the back so you don't get in the way," which was once a symbol of humiliation, transformed into a powerful reminder of Ana Clara's resilience, her ability to transform pain into power, injustice into justice, and silence into a voice that echoed throughout the world, inspiring millions. Their legacy was not just one of professional success, but of a love that flourished amidst adversity, of a partnership that built a better world, and of a truth that, no matter how much they tried to silence it, always found its way to shine.